On Friday, I pledged the full support of the Labour Party in Parliament to Mr. Heath's decision to impose direct rule in Northern Ireland, a decision that was desperate, but a decision that was right. And just as he had the full support of all parties in the House of Commons, today I want to give our fullest backing to the appeal he made on television on Friday and to Mr. Whitelaw's appeal yesterday in Belfast for toleration and understanding and an end of bitterness and violence. No British government, Labour up to June 1970, the Conservatives since June 1970, has sought direct rule as a deliberate policy. But both of us knew that a situation could arise where it became necessary, and neither could flinch from it if the crunch came. And it came on Thursday, when the Ulster government unanimously rejected the British government's new proposals. During the long period of waiting for the government promised package, there were many who feared that Northern Ireland was heading for civil war, both sides armed and British troops caught in a crossfire. After 7 weeks of anxious waiting, last week the government finally agreed on their plan. It contained two essential decisions for which we had pressed through all these weeks: the phasing out of internment, of imprisonment without trial, and the transfer of responsibility for security from the Stormont government to Westminster. There was a reason for our insistence. British troops who were cheered in the streets when the Labour government put them in August 1969 to guarantee firmly and fairly and impartially all communities from any threats of violence are now, through no fault of their own, being pilloried and attacked as the military support of a sectarian regime. Mr. Heath was right to insist on the transfer of the security role. It was Stormont's rejection that brought us inevitably to direct rule. We wish Mr. Whitelaw well in his difficult task. He's made a good start. Speed is important now in appointing his commission. But more than machinery is needed. The fresh start which is urgently required will be immeasurably more difficult unless all parties, all people, can come together in an atmosphere of peace and of hope. 3 weeks ago, I said that if the government's package included the key requirements on internment and security, Catholic leaders in the church and in the political parties would have the right to use their influence to call for, I suggested, a 30-day ceasefire, and there's some suggestion that the short trial 3-day truce was in part a response. Less than a fortnight ago, I had the opportunity of meeting the Sinn Féin leaders direct, who have it in their hands to decide between peace and war. It was not easy, and I had to make clear that no British government could accept their 3 terms for peace without substantial amendment based ultimately on free negotiations with elected MPs north and south and in London. I had to make clear that violence could never unite Ireland, but violence could destroy Ireland. And what I asked for was 2 things: a ceasefire, an end of violence when Mr. Heath's package was announced, to allow all concerned in Northern Ireland to discuss it and build on it in an atmosphere of peace. And secondly, as the guns ceased to talk, those, MPs and others, qualified to speak for the Catholic community should be freed to do so without fear of threats of any kind. Yesterday, Irish parties, Catholic parties and parties representing people of both religions, spoke fearlessly and spoke for peace and for tolerance and understanding. It's vital that this goes on. That is why, in repeating what I said in Dublin, I want to give my backing to those who are calling for a ceasefire now. This chance must not be missed. As quickly as possible, we want to see the troops able again to assume the role they had in 1969. More, to create a situation as quickly as possible where they can move towards a purely peacekeeping role, not a police role. We need to work out for the months immediately ahead the basis for an assured freedom from violence and freedom from fear. For only in that atmosphere can the confidence be created in which all parties, all interests, sit down together to work out a permanent and guaranteed future, based not on violence nor repression, but based on tolerance and reconciliation, and above